this work has been created. This program is called Heal Your Roots. I created that within the last, I would say it's a result of my about 45 years of practicing and also of my life. Because what I did not experience in my early life was that anyone listened, or that anyone was patient, or that anyone would create a safe space for me to blossom. On the contrary, I was growing up in a very, very, very violent family system. And from a very early age, somehow, I think about 15 or 16, I decided I want to help people to heal, because I couldn't help myself at that time. And I couldn't help my siblings. So that was my inner radar leading me to study psychology, to become a therapist, to study all the methods I have learned, and then also to always be curious and stay open for learning. Until today, presently, I am doing a short training with Debdana, who is the collaborator of Stephen Porges. And Stephen Porges himself is the creator of the polyvagal theory, the polyvagal approach in therapy. So I am learning. I think there is no way other than staying alive than stay open to learning. So when you decide to study with me or to learn with me, you have to be open to learning and to experience things that you maybe haven't experienced before. And I do my best to create a space for you that learning is possible, which for me personally is when I study or I decide to study with someone, I have to feel safe in their presence. And this is what I try to create for my work too. I try to create a safe space. So that's basically the ground I'm working on. And the family constellation method, as I said, has transformed my understanding of how healing can happen. Because anything we experience, like wounds, hurts, trauma, usually isn't just happening in us. It's a result of things that happen in the system we were raised in or we are living in. I mean, you living in Israel, you know what I'm talking about. The situation, the present situation in Israel, which I find devastating. And as I hear from all my friends, they find it devastating too. It does something to us. We are not an entity that's not influenced by all the things that happen around us. So when I encountered family constellation with Bert Hellinger, it opened the door to this understanding. I mean, of course, I had an understanding before. I had studied with Virginia Satir in the early 80s. But the work of Bert Hellinger went much deeper in my understanding. So the ground on which I'm working is that we are embedded in systems. We grow up in a system called family, or the larger family, or the religious system we are brought up in, or the societal system we are brought up in. It makes a difference whether we grew up in Germany or in Israel or in an Arab country or in the United States. It influences how and who we become. And from that ground, I look at people. And the constellation method helps to make that more obvious by choosing representatives from that system to represent the dynamics that are happening between each of the representatives in the system. That sounds a little bit theoretical. It is theoretical as long as you haven't experienced it yourself. So today will be a taste of how constellation works. And what I'm going to do is to work with one, if we have time, two of you, do a constellation on an issue that you want to look at. And then we will have time afterwards, at least a little bit time, to discuss what I've done and what happened in the constellation. So you get a taste of what it is, the ones of you who haven't had a taste yet. As I understood, all of you who spoke, you have at least known theoretically a little bit about constellation. So I don't have to explain in detail how it works. The way I work is, so when I work with someone, I will ask what is the issue that you want to look at, and then we will decide together which representatives of that issue we need to put in a constellation. And then I will ask the person to choose representatives from the participants here. And the choosing is very ritualized, because I like to create, that's part of creating a safe space. I like to create an atmosphere of respect for each other. So the inviting ritual, and other facilitators do it differently. They say, you are this, you are that, you are this. I find that rude. I want to be asked if I'm willing to take a role. So the way we do it is that when you are a client, you ask someone, would you like to be whoever you want them to be? And then the person who you ask, if they agree, you say yes. You say, yes, I want to be that part. And then you stand up in the space where you are in, and you allow yourself to become that role. Now, this is the spooky part, that if you haven't done the work, you will think this is hocus pocus. But I promise you, you will perceive a different presence inside of you. You will have maybe body sensations that are usually not yours, or you will feel something, or you will think something that's usually, that you know it's not your thoughts. And that's the role taking you. So, and the client, the one I work with, will ask all the representatives whether they want to be in that role. And then, Chaitanya will rename you, put you in the spotlight, rename you, so we know who you are representing and we don't have to think about it. And then I will work with the representatives, but I will also include always the client. I will always ask in between, how is it for you? Is this going okay for you? How do you feel? Any thoughts, any feelings? And then when the constellation is complete, which sometimes is because it's obvious, now it's complete, it's okay. Sometimes it's complete because there is no going further. It's at this point we have to stop it, because this is how far we can go today. And that can have several reasons. Sometimes it's just that the client isn't really ready to go further, which is totally and 100% okay, because our system protects us from going too far. I respect boundaries very much. So when the constellation is finished at any point, then you release the representatives from their roles by saying, thank you for being wherever they were. You can leave the role now and be yourself again. And then the representative leaves the space. Like you take a step out of the place that you have been in the role, and you just move a little bit around, turn around, and you will notice that the role is leaving you. This is usually what happens. And then we will have a little time to talk about the constellation. Now, it would be too much to go into all the principles of constellation, like in every system, everybody has their place, everybody has the right to belong, and there has to be a kind of a balance between giving and receiving. Those are the three main principles, which I will not go into in detail, but these are the guidelines that I go with. This is, by the way, which I will talk about a little bit later, part of the training to learn those principles. But I will talk about the training after we have had an experience of constellation. So this is as much as I want to explain before we start working. Are there any questions, any questions of understanding up to now?
I have a question. It seems to me a little bit scary to have like if somebody is having a role and some things are going through him.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, it's an ignorant question, but is it safe? Does it really nothing stays after this intervention, like inside a physical body of somebody? I don't know how I feel about that.
I think it's a very valid question and a very good question. And I get that question very, very often. So thank you for asking. In my experience, and also in my experience of having done hundreds or if not thousands of constellations, it has never happened, and I also haven't heard of anyone else, that a role or parts of the role stay in the representative afterwards, especially not in the body. What I experience when I am in constellations and taking roles, which I do on a regular basis, what I experience is that being in the role of someone else always enhances my understanding of the otherness of people or of the sameness. So for me, it's very enriching to be in the role of someone. I understand myself better afterwards. I remember a relatively recent constellation. We have a supervision group for constellations, and one of my colleagues, she's a very tough woman, and I like her, but there's also parts that I am not so comfortable with. So she always, when we do constellation, without fail, she chooses me to be her. And with being her, I have gotten so much more understanding, and I've become so much closer to her. Whereas before, I was rejecting those parts in her that I didn't like in myself, actually. So by being in a role, it can even heal parts in you that you have been rejecting or denying before. So that's my experience of being in a role, but I have never seen that it does any harm. Okay. Another thing I want to add, sometimes a role is so intense that it stays a while, or it resonates for a while in us. And I have not experienced that as harmful either. Because again, if it stays in us for a while, it means that there is a part in us that's experiencing something similar than the person that we were representing. So I always recommend, just let it be with you for a while. It will leave on its own, in its own way. So I am very confident in that this work has not harmed anyone. I mean, I cannot say that because I don't know how other facilitators work. I have heard bad stories about facilitators, but I think when a facilitator is working respectfully, not pushing anything, which I never do. I never push anything. I always go with what the client is agreeing to. I never ever push. So if that's guaranteed, I think this work is healing and not harmful. So, but that's with every therapy, really. If a therapist, I mean, every therapist is also a human being, and there are harmful events, as you know, from probably your own experience or from rumors that you heard. There are harm can happen in therapy, but I try to be as respectful as I can. And as I said, the main thing for me is that I never push. I always go very, very slow, and I go with what the client is agreeing to voluntarily without me pushing.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for asking. I think your question was very important.